everyone. I am Jenny Spencer, and I am our interim chair of the Urban Forestry Commission, and it's my pleasure to act in this capacity and chair our meeting today. And summer finally arrived, and here we are as a commission doing the work. So I'm so grateful for everybody, and we have, as usual, a very full agenda today, and I'm looking forward to today's discussion. So with that, I am calling our meeting to order at 4:02 p.m. Secretary Zaremba, can you please call the roll?
Present.
Hernandez.
Present.
Present. Here. Dan Lehman.
Present.
Tom Schreiber.
Here.
Whitney Long Jones.
Present.
Jenny Spencer.
Present.
Rick Sotalski. Not yet present. Laura Marks.
Yes.
Anna Zaremba. I'm here. Beck Swab. Here. Sarah Tilley.
Present.
Danon Berard. Present. Great. And we have a quorum.
Perfect. And I don't think I have extensive welcome remarks other than to really give a warm welcome to new commission members. I know that for a couple of you, this is your first meeting. Whitney, it's so nice to see you after a while, and it's terrific to have you on the commission. I know we're going to have formal swearing in today, which is very exciting. I will put it out there that I think most of you know that this is my end of my term in office on Cleveland City Council. So to that end, just putting it out to the commission that this is truly an interim position for me. So please begin to think as commission members of levels of interest of serving as chair for the commission. I'd love to have those discussions with any interested parties. And especially since many of you are brand new, if you'd like to do a deeper dive on what the past few years have looked like, happy to speak with you about that. But again, it's my pleasure to chair our July meeting. So, and actually I was sitting here next to Commissioner Danielson and celebrating that there have been no major, well, there was a small storm. Okay. I shouldn't jinx it. We're hoping for a summer with no major storms, including no more significant tree loss from storms. All right. Okay. I hope I didn't jinx it. Okay, great. So with that, again, welcome. And passing it back to Secretary Zaremba for approval of our previous meeting minutes.
Great. I didn't receive any updates to the minutes via email. Did anyone have anything that they wanted to talk about now in terms of revisions, comments, additions? All right. If there are no corrections, the minutes stand approved.
All righty.
Make a motion.
Oh, yes, we need to make a motion. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved.
Thank you. Okay, with that,
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Chair Spencer. I know this is not on the agenda, but can I take a moment to call out an unsung hero in the room?
of course.
Brittany Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
And Brittany Montgomery has been supporting us, the technical side, the room setup since the very beginning of our commission meetings. And she's here through the whole time. There are technical difficulties today. She got us up and running just in the nick of time. So I just wanted everyone to know about Brittany and her support for our commission.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Brittany is one of the team members from the Mayor's Office of Sustainability. So thank you so much. I echo exactly what Jennifer said, our Vice Chair Kip said about all the support you've given to the commission since the inception. You've been amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sometimes it's fantastic to go off script, right? Off agenda. Well deserved. All right, so moving on to unfinished business. First up, we have final updated rules and regulations. Secretary Zaremba.
Britt, you can advance the next couple of slides. until we get to the rules and regulations. There we go. It's just a quick update that we have the finalized approved version of rules and regulations. Councilwoman Spencer is going to speak a little bit more about the newest version after our last meeting. Some revision to language on the committees section that's highlighted in yellow. But if anyone would like a printed copy of the rules and regulations, it contain some of the updates that we agreed on in terms of committee meeting cadence, public comment, and public notice as well. So thanks all for your input up until this point, and we appreciate that. And we'll dive into the newest section a little bit later.
That's great. And for those who wish to have one, there are hard copies of the rules and regulations on the table there. And actually, I want to make note that I appreciate, just as part of our housekeeping, from time to time, this commission may choose to amend or update our rules and regulations. So this is revisions as of 6/10/2025. So the revisions in here, save for the part that is highlighted, have been approved by the commission, motioned and approved by the commission. So I think it's helpful to have, as we're referring to our rules and regs, to know which version we're referring to. And speaking of going out of script with our order of our agenda, since we're kind of in the flow of that, if we may, I would love to go to C here under unfinished business and then come back for our swearing in. So if I can call everyone's attention within the rules and regulations, everything that is not highlighted has been approved by the commission. And then there is these suggested changes to Article 4 committees. And these were reviewed by our committee chairs, by Tom Schreiber and Dan Lehman, and got good feedback about this. At our last meeting, we talked about a few aspects of committee work. First, we talked about the importance of obviously sunshine laws, and these are public meetings and giving sufficient meeting notice for members of the public to observe. We do not have public comment at our committee meetings, so this clarifies that under Article 4.2. It also clarifies committee participation, so non-voting. So Article 4.3 clarifies that at the discretion of the committee chair, the chair can invite ad hoc participants in the meeting, so subject matter experts, other presenters, to participate in committee discussion. They would be non-voting, but they could come and dialogue and take an active role in that particular committee meeting or meetings at the discretion of the chair to provide additional support for committee work. And then Article 4, Part 4 has to do with the possibility of adding additional voting committee members. So this is really brand new. The idea here is that we as a commission, each of us have to participate in at least one committee, but there are many more individuals out there in the community who have a lot of expertise, capacity, and interest in contributing to this work. And even though that the seats on the commission are filled, this opens up the possibility for people who are not commission members to serve in a voting capacity on committee. So this is brand new information. So I want to take a moment to run through this and then invite our committee chairs to see if they have any further comment before opening it up for full commission discussion. And I hope to be able to call for a motion to approve this today. So this is additional committee members voting. A, from time to time, committee chairs may determine that additional voting members who are not duly appointed members of the commission would be beneficial to advance the work and mission of the committee. Additional voting committee members shall: 1, provide a perspective or subject matter expertise not already present among committee members. 2, be recommended for committee appointment by the committee chair and voted on by committee members, with notification provided to the executive committee of such appointment. And 3, carry out a term of no longer than 1 year with reappointment recommended by committee chairs. And I want to just also thank our executive committee, Vice Chair Chip, Kip, sorry, Jennifer, Vice Chair Kip, and Secretary Zaremba. We met as an executive committee and discussed this, and this is what we are putting forth for consideration of the whole commission. So with that, would love just any comments if you have them from our other committee chairs, and or open it up for comments from the rest of the commission.
Sure. As chair of the policy commission, I'm really excited about this proposal and addition to our rules. I think it's very well considered, and look forward to bringing this to the policy committee. I believe that subject matter experts are very, very valuable in our work, and having the flexibility to have their expertise both as special guests and as committee members, I think is really powerful. And I only hope that we can leverage this ability and flexibility for the canopy in Cleveland, and really appreciate the work that went into drafting this.
Are there any further comments or questions from commission members about this?
If I may, while I was doing some research for the policy subcommittee and the budget subcommittee, a lot of things that I brought up or noticed were additional members other cities had on the Urban Forestry Commission that had unique jobs we don't have here. And I saw how valuable that was to the ordinances they were creating and some of the additional work they had. A lot of it was like advocacy and outreach. They had a financial analyst who really helped with their budget subcommittee. Some of them had lawyers on their team. And just based on all the subcommittee meetings I've attended, I think there's a lot of space again for having easily accessible expertise to speed up the process. So I'm very supportive and glad we are adding this. Thank you.
Jose, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. So was there any thought given to the number of people that will be allowed as voting committee members that are non-commission members? I mean, I do appreciate the value of having experts join committees, but I do also appreciate, on balancing votes. Is there, then the commission consider a limit, whether it's by number or percentage, or if we have a committee of 5 people and we decide to add 4 experts to that, do that. I mean, I kind of have an issue with that. So I don't know how other people feel about that.
I can respond to that, Jose. That was discussed, and I think that the feeling is that trusting the chairs to attend to balance within the committee, and committee members themselves would vote to add these members. So I think the discussion would occur at that point about the appropriate balance within the committee itself and number of members and the compelling reason to add another voting member. So this is a little less rigid, if you will. This is a little less prescriptive, but I think that it's worth trying on for size. And if committee chairs find that it's not functioning as intended, we could certainly go back and further amend the rules and regulations in the future. So it does give the committee chairs quite a large amount of discretion, but I was comfortable with that in bringing this forward to the commission today to start.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is there maybe like an action that we want the chairs to take if we adopt these new rules and regulations today, these changes? Is there a follow-up to, by a certain time, we want chairs to identify additional experts to participate in the committees, or is there a call to action maybe is the better question? What are
Yeah,
your
that's a great
thoughts?
question. I don't think we need to codify it, if you will, in the rules and regs itself, but I think that there's been a lot of organic conversation about folks who've applied to the commission or expressed interest. And I think there's really no wrong door to open. So people in the community who are aware of this opportunity could approach committee chairs directly, could approach executive committee members or commission members and be referred to the appropriate committee chair. So I would just say, if any of us, I mean, it's a little it's a little organic, but if any of us are aware of people who really want to or have capacity to contribute to a committee, I would say make the referrals directly to the chairs.
For just the listening public, we could also point them to, we've got the general email, right? The Urban Forestry Commission email. So they could, if they're interested, send an email there.
That's a great point. And for the good of the order, what is the general email? Does anyone know off the top of their head? It's on our website. Okay.
Yeah, it's, I think, literally Urban Forestry Commission at clevelandohio.gov.
Okay, great.
Luckily, we got that.
That's easy to remember.
Right. I did also want to make a suggestion. I think in maybe a more concrete sense in the next quarter, if committees are able to, at their next meeting, determine, like have a point on the agenda to discuss if there's been a gap that they're identifying in particular, to have some sort of justification for adding a new, ad hoc committee member to, really like have a fulfilled role that the new members might fill. I think that could be helpful.
So I think that's a great call to action if the committee chairs are good with that, just to add this as an agenda item to the next committee meeting for discussion. Okay.
But can we utilize outside experts currently? Based on what this is saying right here, because I think our committee wants to utilize somebody from the outside. So can
Yeah,
we
and so
begin?
this is trying to distinguish between committee members non-voting and additional committee members who would be voting, or not committee members who are non-voting. Folks who chairs want to bring in for a specific meeting for a specific purpose, who would be non-voting, but who could freely participate in discussion, as opposed to someone who is seated on the committee as a voting member for a term of up to a year.
Okay,
Does
I
that
understand.
distinction help?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I would like to call for a motion to adopt these changes to Article 4 committees.
I second the motion.
Oh, we need a motion. We need someone to make a
Oh,
motion.
I thought you were making a motion.
Oh.
Apologies.
Okay,
Okay. I make a motion to approve
great.
the revisions to Article 4 rules and regulations.
Great. Do we have a
Second the
second?
motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. So these will be, Anna, or Secretary Zaremba, do we have a place where committee members can go to view the most updated rules and regs in any given moment?
Yes, they are located in the shared Google Drive. There's a committee resources drive folder. So everyone should have access to that. And if you're having trouble finding it or if it's lost in your email, I'll resend it after this meeting. to
Okay,
everyone.
great. But this hard copy that we have today is pretty much our fully updated rules and regs as of today then. So thank you. All right, without further ado, I think we should move to our swearing in of new commission members. So I'm excited about that.
I will have done this almost as many times as the people I am calling up, so we'll work through this together. Whitney, can you come up, please? All right, you are here for your oath of office. Can you please raise your right hand and repeat after me?
Yes.
I, Whitney Long Jones,
I, Whitney Long Jones,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the codified ordinances
and the codified ordinances
and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission of the City of Cleveland,
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission of the City of Cleveland,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
during my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We sign in here later. And please.
And I'll take the originals.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Sarah Tilley, please. All right. You are here for your oath of office. Can you raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me? I, Sarah Tilley,
I, Sarah Tilley,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the codified ordinances and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and the codified ordinances and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission
of the City of Cleveland, State of Ohio,
of the City of Cleveland, State of Ohio,
during my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Janan. Good afternoon. All right, you are here for your oath of office. Can you raise your right hand, please? Repeat after me. I, Janan Berard,
I, Janan Berard,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the codified ordinances and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and the codified ordinances and the Charter of the City of Cleveland,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission of the City of Cleveland,
discharge the duties of the Urban Forestry Commission of the City of Cleveland,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
during my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Great job, Commissioner. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations. Okay. Moving right along to new business and calling for committee updates. Tom or Dan, either one of you is welcome to proceed.
Okay, I have an update for you. So we met twice during the last quarter for the maintenance committee. So one was on 5/14. We had 8 people attend. So it's a really dynamic group, really good people, and really nice input. So the first, I'll just go over some of the themes. The first one was related to the maintenance committee charter, and we want to further refine it. We had some discussion about it, and we're still not quite done. We think based on where the committee's heading, we think we can add to it, and we can add to it still. So that was one theme. And there was some discussion, really some updates from Jennifer regarding really enhanced maintenance that's going to be happening in the future. And so that's pretty exciting to hear. So we talked about that, talking about extending the warranty period for contractors. Their topic was related to enhancement of the use of volunteers. And there was a lot of tree stewards on the east side and west side, and we're very interested in making the city better and our trees thrive, especially at a young age. So we talked about that. And we talked about other things. And we also decided to really rank some of all our discussions about what priorities that we should move forward with. Like, how do we rank them? So we decided to rank them. So there's, I don't know, probably about 10 different big themes for our meeting, and we ranked them from highest to lowest. And we met yesterday, and so we ranked these 10 or so most impactful. So which areas would be the most impactful activities that could be implemented within our current resources? You know, we don't want to make it like, oh gosh, let's change the whole city, because we thought that wouldn't happen in kind of a short amount of time or a reasonable amount of time. So what would be most impactful? And then we effectively came up with two subcommittees. One is going to be headed up by Laura Marks. And she wants to leverage the use of volunteers. And again, we've talked about this before, but such as tree stewards to support the city of Cleveland in its efforts, and for us to like volunteer and really focused on young tree training and other ideas related to having successful the establishment of trees. And the other one is headed up by Janan. And what she wants, so she's heading up like leveraging technology. She loves technology. So it's so nice to have a young person with us. Leverage technology and communication to outreach to homeowners and how to care and protect the newly planted trees and improve the education, outreach, et cetera. So more to follow, but that's kind of like the general themes of where we're heading right now through the end of the year. And one of our goals, based on some recent meetings, was to pre-plan our meetings and when we're going to have our next one. And so right now we have at least penciled in is we have a meeting planned for 8/4. So those are updates.
Hey. Thank you. Chair Schreiber, would you like to report on the policy committee?
Yes, thank you. So we met on May 14th. Our primary agenda items were a brief discussion about enforcement of the current codified ordinance and publishing guidance for citizens on what our current tree ordinances cover. We also had an continued extensive debate on creating an exceptions to the federal guidelines for sidewalk width for significant trees. These guidelines are known by the acronym PROWAG. So we advanced that discussion quite a bit. We meet again tomorrow, and both of those items are on the agenda. We have a subject matter expert coming to discuss city enforcement. We're lucky to have Kate Staley from Urban Forestry join us to discuss some of her research. And and we're also going to discuss additional subject matter experts. We've proposed in the past adding a commission member with legal background to the policy commission. So looking forward to that discussion.
Great, thank you. And I will provide an update on the budget committee. The budget committee met on April 29th, and I very much appreciated interest from new commission members who were in attendance. We started the meeting by doing a recap of the budget committee's work with a desire to bring new members up to speed, and spent most of the time speaking about the work we're all wanting to move towards, which is identifying a sustainable funding source for urban forestry. Or multiple sustainable funding sources. Why limit it to just one? We need as many identifying sustainable funding sources for urban forestry. So as many of you know, budget cycles are subject to a lot of different factors, and we are looking to pull on best practices from other places to examine how we can increase our funding for urban forestry. So we had a great discussion that day. And there has been a lot of work since then in smaller discussions. I had a great meeting with Vice Chair Kipp and Kate Stanley from Forestry about starting to go to do a deeper dive on some of the numbers. And then individual committee members, Janan and Laura, also contributed some research. So I hope to follow up with the committee again within the next couple of weeks to set our next meeting and to provide an update on those activities as we continue to crunch some numbers. Okay. And for those of you who are, if this is your very first meeting, we reviewed it when we looked at our rules and regulations, but the rules and regs do reference that each commission member shall participate on at least one committee. So if any of these three committees are calling to you, please approach that individual chair to be added to circulation and notice for upcoming meetings. And you can do all three. Hey. Okay.
Chair
just saying.
Spencer, on that note,
Yes.
I'm wondering if Laura and Janan would speak a little bit more to what kind of came out of the maintenance committee, so that for a new member who's not sure which subcommittee of the maintenance committee, maybe they'd be interested. So we have time for that.
Sure.
Sure. So on the maintenance committee yesterday, as Dan said, we had about 8 items we had discussed, and what we deemed most important. I kind of noticed a trend of these all involve communication, and right now we don't know the medium through which we want to communicate, nor do we have a person volunteering to do the manpower to act on said communication. Some of it seemed like it could be a one-person job, so I volunteered to do that. But I also just volunteered to say, like, hey, we're doing something important here. We have a lot of information that we want to get out in the community. We have a love for urban forest, and that's something that I really want to share while I'm still here and while I can do that. And so I think I'm meeting with Vice Chair Kipp and some others soon to talk about how we do that. Do we do it through a website? Do we do it through social media accounts? Do we do it through email lists? Like when there are people who have a new tree planted, do we ask for their information and say, hey, would you like someone to share? How do you take care of this tree? That is now your responsibility to take care of. Laura also brought up the point that some people are unable to take care of trees that are newly planted. They still want that tree, but perhaps they don't have the resources, whether it's their physical ability or access to water to do that. And so they would be put on the list for tree stewards or other volunteers to care for those trees. Yeah, so just overarchingly, how do we communicate what we need to communicate and spread our love of the urban forest? Yeah. Is that anything else? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'm Laura Marks, and I'm a longtime tree steward. I was 2 years old when John F. Kennedy was inaugurated, so I don't remember his speech, but I grew up with that ethos of don't ask what your city can do for you, ask what you can do for your city. And I believe that all of the tree stewards who have gone through the Western Reserve and Holden program feel that way, and in general, they are underutilized. So I believe that there are many things that as a tree steward and, further education that I can do, that I cannot do. I can't run a chainsaw in a bucket truck, but I can stand on the ground and I can mulch and I can organize people and I can do young tree training. And what I'm hoping by organizing tree stewards to help the city is that we will free up resources that increases the survivability of the first 5 years of the tree and allow forestry to do what they do best. So I have a meeting scheduled with Kate Christian in the Slavic Village neighborhood, and Dan and I will be working together to do an initial organization of how do we contact tree stewards? How do we get them enthusiastic? How do we identify who's in what neighborhood so that we can do it? And who's willing to step out of their neighborhood and go from Collinwood to Slavic Village or Tremont to Huff or wherever? So there's a lot of organizing to do, but I'm hoping that we will be doing some young tree training this winter when the trees are dormant. If anybody wants to join in this, you're more than welcome to. I don't think it needs to be just tree stewards. It just seems like a right pot. And I think that if there are ISA certified arborists who like to give up their weekends working on Cleveland trees, they're welcome to join me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, and if I could just add, what we talked about on the maintenance committee was how do we get those volunteers the support of the city that they need to be able to say, hey, we're here under the right people's authority to take care of these trees. But also that they have the other resources they need, like water. I know we talked about in the policy committee, we're really successful with this new hydrant permit. So just celebrating that success and making sure they have those resources as well.
Right. And Jen shared Western Reserve Land Conservancy's standards of cares for trees that we'll be following. So as we plow through that, we'll identify the needs and follow those as best we can.
Great. I'm inspired. Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. And Laura, I'll be following up with you about the tree stewards in Ward 15. So
Great, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
I need names and neighborhoods and contact information.
Great. Wonderful. All right. So I think we are done with our committee updates and we can move on to utility clearance. Commissioner Danielson.
All right, thank you. Since I guess our last meeting, just one of the things that we talked about and that comes up fairly frequently is the interaction between the electric utility and the rest of the urban forest. So this is just kind of a high level overview and a briefing and answering some, I think, fairly common questions. So next slide, please. We're talking about it, obviously not planning to be here all day or maybe the rest of the day, but wanted to give a little bit of background on CPP. Of course, the tree treatment itself, particularly the whys and the hows, we go about it, and then mention, of course, that we do collaborate gratefully with the Division of Urban Forestry. Next. Next as well. Okay. So for some context, Cleveland Public Power, CPP, has been around since early 1900s, depending on where you chart, whether it was the first delivery of electrons or the establishment between around 1908, 1914. And then we had actually a coal plant producing power for quite a few decades as well. Thankfully, we're no longer burning coal in the city of Cleveland, but the rest of the grid we have expanded extensively. So that highlighted area is where we operate our distribution network in the city. And that is primarily our distribution, especially the primary wires, is primarily where we interact with the urban forest. Next slide. To give some context then, we just within the city of Cleveland, then that's 900 miles of distribution wires, 50 miles of the higher voltage transmission, and then the substations themselves generally less interaction with trees, but they have their own clearance requirements. Next slide. All right, one more. So I think a lot of you are familiar with tree trimming in general, and that's why it's the emphasis is on electric utilities. And why do we do it? The very clear, concise answer is just it's safety and reliability. We don't do vegetation management for its own sake. It's essentially very important to how we deliver energy throughout the neighborhood. So there is a ANSI ANSI standard that we follow. It's similar, I think, to a lot of the other pruning requirements, but there is a substandard specific to utility pruning. That's something that we follow. It's something that we do have a recurring contract that we usually have with a vendor. It's also, so it's part of their contract. It's something that we all, and that's within the city and outside the city. That's a very uniform kind of approach to safe, reliable pruning and trimming of trees. Next slide. A very simplistic view of this in terms of how we do it is each tree we have to assess. We need to look at it and how it interacts with or approaches our wires. One thing that's of note, and I'll have some examples in a bit that better illustrate. Electricity, of course, we have different voltages that we interact with. So the high voltage transmission wires, they have pretty massive clearances that are required, especially if you see them in other areas. Generally, that's what brings electricity into the city. You might have more than 25 feet on either side that is completely flat to the ground. Thankfully, that's not us for our distribution wires. It's much lower voltage, but we still have to have a pretty significant clearance. And when we are trimming those, we also need to make sure that we're trimming it to account for next month, next year. We can't come out there and trim constantly. And it's not good for the tree to cut it all the time either. So a lot of what we try to do is essentially guide the tree and its growth away from the wires. And to do so in the healthiest way possible so that the next spring it's not immediately sprouting back and causing another problem. To the degree possible, that takes into account certainly the growth, but also we do have the occasional storm. So when the wind is blowing, the tree flexes, the branches flex, all of that's kind of taken into account in terms of what we do and why we need the clearances that we do create. Okay, next slide. So one of the things that it's still a little hard to see, but want to highlight here is when we're trimming for clearance, it's the lines that are generally speaking on the top of the pole. So those are our primary wires, primary distribution voltage. Those are our higher voltages, not the same voltage that runs to your house. That might be, for instance, 13.8 thousand volts on the primary distribution side. And then what runs into your house is going to be 240, 120, much lower voltages, much lower risk of arcing or tracing, tracking, all those other good terms. Essentially, the lower voltage tends to stay where you want it to stay. And primary voltage has a greater risk of not doing so. That's why we need the clearances. So these are just some examples of what that can look like in a neighborhood. To help illustrate, I actually took these pictures outside of the city of Cleveland. So we do something very similar, just wanted to illustrate that this is not just a Cleveland thing. It's the electric utility approach to trimming. In both of these examples, those trees are planted essentially right under the wires. So thankfully, these trees were selected to be small enough that they're not going to grow into giants and have to essentially be removed. But in both cases, you see a live example of what is essentially a Y or a V cut to guide those branches away from the wires so that in the future you don't have primary limbs growing towards the primary wires. Next. These ones, there's a little bit more going on the left-hand side. You still see some of the more common Y cut. On the right-hand side, you can see that where the wires aren't quite as in line with those trees, so they needed to be guided differently. One thing, it's a little harder to see, but this applies even to trees that are on the side or further away. On the right-hand side, that right-hand tree, you can hopefully tell that's not a normal crown to the tree. It is shaped at an angle away from the primary wires, and I think a good example of just how far away you need to guide it. Also note, so this was taken in the fall. When you trim trees, it might look like somebody just took a single chainsaw or something and trim that entire tree. We do trim individual limbs to guide, so it might look like that, but it's based on how they trimmed inside the tree crown itself. Next. All right, and then finally, just more of the highlight, we do work with urban forestry fairly frequently, more frequently when it's a little bit stormy. A lot of my focus and the utility focus is in that little U on the upper right-hand side. So everything else you can call Jennifer Kipp. Yes, I am joking. But a lot of what we do, of course, is closer to the wires and the lines. Urban forestry tends to be more on the tree lawn side of things, but there is a lot of overlap there. So we do need to work together, especially with my priorities to go back to the beginning, being safety and reliability. That's safety and reliability, not just for me and my employees, it's for the urban forestry employees and workers and all of the residents of the city that are out there as well. So it's always a collaboration. And I guess last note there, if you see a downed wire, don't touch it. When I had said generally the higher voltages are the primaries up top, when a storm happens, when there's a downed wire, you don't know where it came from. You don't know if farther up the street there's a high voltage wire touching a low voltage wire. So you can look at that, you think you know better, it's just a low voltage something, you're going to pull it out of the way. That's very much not the case. You can't trust that downed wire. But so that's last note from me. Hopefully it didn't take too long. We have time for questions or if there are any.
Several years ago, I did research on the cost of burying wires, particularly in that case, it was Lee Road in Cleveland Heights. Basically, what I found is that nobody knows how much it costs to bury wires. Is there an estimate? I'm particularly interested because along Lakeshore Boulevard in Collinwood, where the city has bought Dave's property and a whole bunch of other properties there, they're talking about burying the wires so that we can have good tree canopy along Lakeshore Boulevard. And I'm wondering if there's what I can do to advance that whole scenario of getting the wires out of the visual and tree interference.
I don't think it's that there is no estimate. But to immediately reverse that, there's a huge range of potential costs. So it is kind of hard to estimate ahead of time. I will say one of the things that we do try and do is coordinate with other divisions. So when the street is already open, for example, see if we can get our wires undergrounded there. One thing to keep in mind as well, and kind of defines how we can work with either other divisions or other entities is simply that our Cleveland Public Power is part of the city, but Cleveland Public Power is what's called an enterprise fund. So all of our money only comes from our customers. So it's also a question of what I can responsibly charge to our customers, and if it's for a safety or reliability purpose. I'll just say, especially when it comes to funding, there is a fair amount that goes into it. The number one issue, I think, is cost. Hopefully that helps to answer your question, but definitely open to talking about it more, and especially if there's already some movement in there. I will say we've also worked with organizations in the past who are like redoing the streetscape sort of thing, and those tend to be good opportunities to work together.
So what can I do to work with CPP to get this stretch of Lakeshore Boulevard, the utilities, buried? Councilman Polensik is currently working with some of the network providers because there are too many wires, you know, how they just leave wires behind that nobody's using anymore. And we just need to clear the visual field and allow trees to grow. And so I'm wondering what I can do to step in here and help facilitate this.
In this case, I think a good place to start is just sending me a note with the details, and I can either look at it more or assign somebody to dig into it.
Great, thanks so much. No pun intended. Sorry, that wasn't a utility.
That was literally no pun intended, yes.
He'll dig into it. He'll dig into it. Okay. And actually, I'm going to just follow up on that if I briefly may. And I obviously bring the lens of Cleveland City Council, but it sounds like the councilman in the ward is already very familiar with the project. I don't know what is the nature of the project, if it's an entire roadway resurfacing or streetscape, or do you have knowledge of what is the project, the scope?
Well, it's huge because the city has bought several properties along Lakeshore Boulevard. It's directly across the street from Wildwood Park. This trailer park is being demolished, and so they don't need electricity anymore. I mean, there's a lot going on in this section of Lakeshore Boulevard. I invite everybody to come visit my neighborhood. And the utilities are definitely one of the things that's going to need to be addressed. Right now, the surface of the road is not bad, but you know, it'll break down and we'll need to replace everything. So,
and just in my experience, this is not necessarily the utility driving the process. This can be bid out through our capital projects folks as well. So it kind of depends on who is leading the project. So I would just encourage you to also include Councilman Polensik on the email, because he may know who's actually driving the project. And I think the answer to your question of what does it cost to bury utilities is you have to get a bid to know the answer to that question. I don't want to oversimplify, but it's my understanding it is significantly more expensive. It was done in one part of my ward 12 plus years ago, and if anyone's familiar with Battery Park, but it's significantly more expensive than the status quo, and construction costs are kind of all over the place. So I think, unfortunately, it's a case-by-case basis. You would need to bid the project out. So I think the ask would be, can burying the utilities be bid out as an add alternate to this project so we can see what it costs? And from there, you say what funding sources can be identified. So that would be kind of my approach. But Councilman Polensik is a very fierce advocate, so I would just keep him activated there, and that's a good thing. If I may, I wanted to briefly, and I'm mindful of time, we do have a little bit of time here for if there are any further questions about the presentation. I find this slide kind of poignant in the sense of I am so passionate about shade and shade trees, and there's this real give and take when it comes to utility line conflicts and our need for the benefits of shade, the public benefits that shade trees provide. And so this to me seems like a bit of an oversimplification that you can only plant almost quasi-decorative trees next to utility wires. And I certainly would not want that to be the case citywide with our street trees. So because we have such expertise in the room, wanting to take a moment to clarify that any planting on the public right of way is permitted and the Division of Forestry reviews the permit requests. So Vice Chair Kipp, if you don't mind, could you lend a little clarity to species selection and sort of how that discussion unfolds for street tree planting?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about like our internal processes for in the Division of Forestry. So before we plant a tree, we have a team of 5 foresters. They're all certified arborists. Some of them are track qualified as well. And they go to the site and just basically collect data to determine site suitability. So they'll look for overhead wires. The wires that we want to avoid are the primary wires. So one other thing just to make note of is that there's a lot of wires on some poles. So we want to make sure we're staying away from the uppermost wires or the primary distribution lines, as Commissioner said. We also consider, is there a utility pole? How close is it to, is it in the tree lawn? Do we have room for a tree? Do we have room for like maybe a narrow columnar type growing tree as opposed to like a wide spreading tree? We also, obviously the tree lawn width plays like a huge factor. So we need 9 feet tree lawn width to plant a large shade tree, which is the tall trees in the image there. So that's a minimum of 9 feet. Typically no overhead wires. But what we also do is we understand if we've got a wide enough tree lawn, let's think West Boulevard, for example, right? Like there's probably overhead wires down or MLK. So we still have enough room to plant a large shade tree. And we understand the canopy may grow to encroach near the wires, but then you're going to end up with, the L-shaped kind of clearance. Or if we're planting under, like we just have to set the expectation to the residents that if we plant a larger tree that's going to encroach on primaries, then we have to be willing to accept that vegetation clearance is going to change the form and architecture of the tree forever. So, but most neighborhoods where we really need that shade canopy, we don't have the wide tree lawns and we've got overhead wires galore. And Laura, I'm with you on just wires being rerouted or reconnected, not electric wires. This would be the other, telecom companies just cutting and just leaving wires just hanging on the ground.
It would be nice if there were a policy in the city that the networks, Spectrum and Verizon, that they need to remove them when they're no longer used. Just leaving them as trash, either on the ground, hanging from the poles, or just the visual overload of the heavy wires. It would just be nice if there were policy that prohibited that.
Chair Schreiber, did you make a note of that? Thank you. Our policy chair. I think that's a great suggestion.
May already be policy, but that's worth following up on about does the policy exist and is there an enforcement challenge, right? Okay.
Did I answer your question, Chair Spencer? Okay.
Are there any other questions before we move on about Commissioner Danielson's presentation?
2 quick comments. One is just thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciated it. 2, I just want to acknowledge that urban forestry always encourages us to plant the largest tree possible. And they, we are encouraged when there are no wires, when the tree lawn width is there, they absolutely see it as a loss if we're planting a smaller tree than the infrastructure allows. And so I want to acknowledge that I feel encouraged and empowered to always plant the largest tree that fits within the guidelines. And I think that's very wise policy.
And then the last thing I want to, a comment that I'll make, maybe the controversial take, but my own view and vision of utility pruned trees has changed over the course of my professional career as an arborist. I used to think it was real ugly when I saw those V-shaped prunes or those side prunes, and that was something aesthetically that displeased me, and I think displeases a lot of people in the city. I've grown to see trees and forests that grow that way all the time. And I've learned that when you prune a tree properly and well, it can be a strong contributor to our canopy and produce lots of shade, even though it's not perfectly symmetrical. And I think that we often have a low tolerance for misshapen trees or trees that we don't think fit their typical view. So well, I would prefer to see a tree than a wire any day of the week. I'd rather see shade than no shade. And so I want to encourage folks to consider the aesthetic and consider the benefits of the trees while we consider the safety and reliability of the power delivery. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair Schreiber. And just to, for the good of the order, to clarify one of your comments, when you were referencing we, you were wearing your Western Reserve Land Conservancy hat.
I was, thank you.
All right, great. WRLC does a good deal of planting in the right of way citywide. So thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Terrific. With that, we will move on to the next agenda item, hydrant permitting process. Secretary Zaremba.
Great, thanks. And everyone should have a copy of the tree watering hydrant permit eligibility application for your review as well. And just wanted to talk a little bit more about that as an outcome of the policy committee and a couple departments within the city of Cleveland to create this really successful revision to the hydrant permitting process. So huge shout out to Jose in particular, and Tom and Jen and Jenny. The Division of Urban Forestry and Cleveland Water Department played a huge role. Kate Stanley, who's not there, in helping to redevelop this process based on some feedback that we've been hearing from tree groups who have been maintaining trees on City of Cleveland property. So essentially, to boil down this change in process, we are changing the current seasonal hydrant access permitting process from a single day use permit to a seasonal watering period of time for public trees based on the number of trees that are planted, as opposed to based on single hydrants in a specific area for one day at a time. Who's eligible could be individuals, nonprofit organizations, contractors, community groups, essentially anyone who is watering trees planted on public property, which could include lawns, parks, or tree lawns, parks, land bank lots, other locations approved by the Division of Urban Forestry. So the Division of Urban Forestry is really going to be the entity that's deciding on what that looks like eligibility wise. And this recently went into effect in May. We're definitely excited to get the word out to anyone who could potentially benefit from this new hydrant permitting process, as it would result in a cost reduction as well as ease of access to water for tree maintenance in a larger area. To make it a lot easier to water a whole project worth of trees instead of one at a time. Great, if you'd move on to the next page. And just kind of walking through a few of the high-level steps of how to complete this eligibility application and what has changed. So the application that we have here in PDF form, currently, I'm not sure if it's quite, it'll soon be updated. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. At some point soon, it will be on the City of Cleveland website. For now, Kate Stanley, the Urban Forestry Administrative Manager, will be the person to reach out for a PDF copy of the hydrant permit eligibility application. And you'll be walked through a few different questions to determine how much water the permit is going to be covering for, based on the number of trees to be watered, the size of the trees, the geographic area that you're requesting, if you know of the hydrants that are within that location as well, and then the start date for watering, and based on a chart that Kate has put together, the amount of water per area and per tree, as well as the staff will be accessing the hydrants. And so you'd submit that permit to Kate Stanley. Urban Forestry Division would review the eligibility application and approve or deny, which there could certainly be some conversation around that as well. And then as you are filling out a hydrant permit application for the Division of Water or the Water Department, you'd submit the signed eligibility notice, which is on the back page of the eligibility form to the Division of Water as you're applying for a hydrant permit. And then you would receive your hydrant permit and just follow the instructions provided from the Cleveland Water Department. For example, always having your watering permit on you as you're watering trees. But that's boiled down to the process. I'm happy to loop in Jen or Jose if you want to speak any more on this topic.
I just want to say maybe the term hydrant permit is a little deceiving because it's not a single hydrant, right? It's a number of hydrants within a certain, I think it's a circle. Do you remember 1,500?
Yeah, like a 1,500 square.
Yeah, it's a couple blocks worth of potential hydrants that could be used for watering trees. In the past, these permits were just kind of limited to a single hydrant or a single location, and that doesn't help trees, right? So this is more, so if the trees that you're watering are within that particular zone that's permitted, then you can use any hydrant within that zone to water for the entire season also. This is not a single day or single uses. Now, obviously for the next season, you have to reapply, right? So, all right.
Thanks for clarifying that, Jose. And I just also wanted to say thanks, even though Kate Stanley isn't here, she's really done a tremendous job in partnering with you and having many meetings and conversations. So I cannot speak more to it other than I'm really grateful to have Kate on the team and partnering with you on this.
And if I can add, so I'm a tree steward. I've been trained and one of the main tenets of being a tree steward and making sure trees are successful is make sure they have enough water. And I mean, as recently as last week, I was watering trees and on public property as it was in a park. The tree is newly planted. Now it's using my own water from from my house and loading 5-gallon buckets in my pickup truck. So this is wonderful. So thank you for having this as an option for everyone.
So should we be expecting a permit application from you, Dan?
Can I be the first one? Seriously.
I will just add, I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. This is a huge deal. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not out in the field doing this, but I do want to get this out. I know that actually, Sarah, if you'd like to comment, you may. I know that you've shared this with Cleveland Tree Commission, your communication channels about this new permitting process. But I'd love for the public to really be aware of this change and how, as a policy change, the city of Cleveland is supporting trees. I think it's going to make a huge difference. So I will be following up, and I'd love to. I appreciate this presentation that you put together, Secretary Zaremba. I think what would be really helpful in explaining this to the public would be almost like what were we doing before compared to what we're doing now? What, sort of the apples to apples, because people who aren't necessarily practitioners wouldn't say, wow, this is amazing, when in fact, wow, this is amazing. So I'd like to do a little bit more to make sure we can get some public recognition. And I would like to take a moment to sincerely again thank everyone who really hammered this out in a lot of meeting and discussions, Jose, Anna, Tom, and Kate, who is not here, and Jennifer. So thank you.
Could I just ask a question of Sarah? Can you talk a little bit about your communication on this celebration and about how many members it reached?
Sure. The Cleveland Tree Coalition, which as a reminder is sort of like the nonprofit partner to the city in doing this work. We send out a newsletter, so that reaches about 213 people. We featured this hydrant permitting process change in our newsletter that went out last week. And a majority of the recipients are those community-based planning partners who are either applying to funds through the Cleveland Tree Coalition or through other sources to plant in the right of way, in public parks, vacant lots, all the places we noted. So we linked to this document itself, and we also put some of this information on the Cleveland Tree Coalition website because I think oftentimes there's so many folks working in this realm and all of our names sound so similar that you might be Googling something and you think you're on the city's website and you're not, or you are on the coalition website and you think it's the commission. So we just made sure that we outlined everything that you need to know here on our website as well, off linking back to the city, especially when the proper web page is up and running. So we'll also work closely in the fall with the city when we do our 2025 re-grants to make sure that we highlight these changes. And I think the more we get ahead of the message, the better, because as was stated, there's a real benefit to maybe planting in clustered locations within that radius that can reduce your costs greatly as a community-based planning partner. But we also know there's lots of economies of scale benefits when we're thinking about concentrated planting. So yeah, 213 recipients if you're counting, and 60% of people opens the message. So I don't know what that means, but I think it's better than average. So yeah.
Did also want to mention that my colleague Giuseppe has created some lovely graphics that I'm happy to share that haven't yet been posted through sustainability yet, but highlight the permitting change. So happy to share that with the group so we can reshare.
Exciting.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in my research for the policy and budget subcommittees, one thing I learned about was just how interconnected enforcement and maintenance are. One of the questions I was researching is how do other cities enforce policies and ordinances after they've created them? And I realized just how important maintenance is as a key form of enforcement. So I wanted to highlight that, but I also wanted to highlight, I think this is a super important policy when it comes to equity because it allows groups who are volunteering to save them time and energy, money, and also water, which is always important for sustainability. So I think it's a real win for equity, which is, I know, something we prize on this commission. And then lastly, when it comes to communicating about this, hopefully when I have a meeting with you next week, Vice Chair Kip, we can also talk about that. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. I will keep us moving so we have time for the remaining items on our agenda today. We had two side-by-side updates, Urban Forestry Division and United States Forest Service grant updates. Vice Chair Kip.
Thank you, and I will go quickly here. So our grant activities, so we selected Davie Resource Group, which I believe we mentioned at the last meeting, and the contract is in the law department. So we're hoping that the contract with Davie Resource Group will be finalized in the next few weeks so that they can get started doing the inventory in August. So fingers crossed, everybody. And then we have the additional partnership agreements in progress. So our subrecipients, our Cleveland Tree Coalition, Cleveland Metro Parks, and Cuyahoga County. Those are in progress. And our Opportunity Corridor RFP has been finalized. I want to thank everybody who did give me some comments and feedback on that RFP. And so now that's just going to be going through that internal process to get posted or advertised, if you will. Next slide. Some more grant. Oh, whoops. There was a duplicate slide in there. One had a picture, one didn't. Okay, so this just kind of shows you a snapshot of some work that has been done with our grant dollars because we started our maintenance instead of in year 2, year 1. We're trying to spend down $570,000 of the grant funding, and we've pruned 694 trees so far. We have another 700 slated for this fall to assign to our contractor. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be looking at 1,400 trees pruned, which would not be possible without this these grant dollars. So hopefully some neighborhoods and some areas are really starting to see that impact because they're going down whole streets and doing some pruning. Next slide. Operations. So we're conducting a tree and stump assessment in parks. So that's something that Director Nichols would like to get all of the stumps removed from parks. I would too. It's just that's an additional kind of inventory piece that our internal field operations foresters are tasked with. Just going one park at a time. The tree assessments are more around those static targets. Where do we have hazardous trees near playgrounds, swing sets, benches, pavilions, etc. And our young tree training, we performed, we actually, again, through grant dollars from ODNR, the State Urban Forestry Resilience Program, we received $48,066. We were able to do young tree training of 700 trees. And then there's a match to that grant. So we're looking at doing another 700 before end of the year. That's just young tree training. We're interviewing 2 Arborist 1 candidates. I believe we have 5 vacancies at this time. We have a lot of vacancies. So we're hoping to bring on 2 new arborists within the next few weeks. And then the Commissioner of Urban Forestry, those interviews have been taking place as well. We will be having a fall planting. We have $340,000 that we're looking to spend for our fall planting. And that is not including the $750,000 in capital from Mayor Bibb. So that we'll be looking to have 2 programs next year to start spending that down. I think next slide. Okay, operations, permitting improvements ongoing because it's pretty new. There's always room for improvement there. We're excited. We're getting a new track lift, or it's also called a spider lift. Commissioner Danielson may want to borrow it from time to time. So it's great. You can basically drive this lift down the sidewalk. It has a 3-foot wide kind of track base, and we can actually reach limbs that are over structures, over homes without having to cut through the tree with the bucket. So we're really excited about this. We're having a demo day on Friday. We still have our monthly training every month. Next week, I'm teaching a class to our internal staff, but everybody's welcome on structural pruning, why we do it, why it matters. Our staff just finished their annual electric hazard awareness training. And our team, we have a dedicated forester supporting the tree damage sidewalk program and the 50/50 sidewalk program. That's basically like he's going to be a dedicated resource because there's over 2,000 locations where he has to do some route assessment and work hand in hand with the project arborist on that. We're also supporting the street resurfacing program by getting out there and doing some clearance pruning over the road. Next slide. Okay, any questions, comments? I blazed through that.
That was good, and sorry that.
No, that's fine.
We're at the end of our agenda.
We're good.
Could we go back a couple slides if possible? There was the slide about the 340,000 for the street tree, the fall planning. This is not capital funds, so what is the source of funds for this 340,000? Or is it?
Excuse me, some of it's capital from last year and some of it I think is general fund from this year.
Okay,
Yeah, and we had to increase the contract.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Same.
But I can give you the exact breakdown in next budget committee meeting if that would be okay.
Sure. Anyone else have any questions? Thank you for that. Those were great updates.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we will move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. And I understand that did someone sign in for public comment?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I'd like to invite Michael Armstrong to address the commission.
Hey.
What are our
It's
rules?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah, and then if
Okay.
you want to just remember to hit the button on the mic. Who's timekeeping? Jenny, are you timekeeping?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Thank you. Just here's some facts. Cleveland City Council Ordinance 678/2025 authorizes the issue and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $28 million for the purpose of providing funds to improve the municipal street system and related facilities. As it pertains to trees, this bond says it can allocate funds to remove trees or replace a tree if it is cut down for a project. We need new trees and must maintain the ones we have now along our city streets. Instead of relying on CTC grants for this, will the UFC review this proposed ordinance and recommend these bonds also be used to fund the planting and maintenance of street trees too, or even bury utility lines along streets like Lakeshore Boulevard for more trees? Next, another City Council emergency ordinance 718/2025 authorizes the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to Metro Parks to encroach into the public rights-of-way of Old Lorraine Road and River Edge Road by installing, using, and maintaining a 10-foot wide asphalt multi-purpose trail. Recently, dozens of mature trees along the same encroachment were cut down. Was a permit issued by Urban Forestry allowing their removal? Did the USC make any recommendations? For the same project, several acres of urban forest, hundreds of mature trees were cut down to make way for a paved bike path. Since Chapter 341.051 tree preservation plan requirements do not apply to trail project construction, will the USC recommend changes to close this loophole so that it does apply? More trails are being planned now across Cleveland. Removing acres of urban forest for any reason, not just paved trails, all do great harm to our tree canopy. Similarly, when will Chapter 341.053 civil penalties for damaged trees or trees removed without approval be enforced? This section was put into effect in 2018, and we're still waiting for its enforcement, I understand. Will the USC take this up? I have thought the Cleveland Tree Coalition might, but 11 of their 12 members of their leadership board and director reside in the suburbs. Their focus is elsewhere. So we need the USC to step it up now. If not, an independent organization of Cleveland residents to advocate for trees and an expanded tree canopy will have to be created to do so, as losing hundreds of trees in an urban forest matters, and so too do our city's tree canopy enforcement, planting, and maintenance funding mechanisms matter as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And perfect 3 minutes. Thank you. And I believe we received one online public comment as well. I will read that into the record. Is that correct? Okay. The online public comment was submitted on June 25th, 2025. And the commenter states, I live on Lake Avenue in Cleveland, Edgewater neighborhood, and a lot of trees, mature trees, have been cut down over the last 9 to 12 months, I'd say. 2 huge trees were just cut down the other day. This affects residents of the neighborhood, but we get no notice that this will be happening when and why. They're just gone one day and we lose a beautiful attribute of our community. I know Cleveland knows the importance of trees, especially in an urban setting, in their goal to increase the urban tree canopy. So why are you eliminating beautiful, old, mature trees that service our city? Is there anything the city or residents can do to prevent this habitat loss and threat to the environment? Thank you. So, and I apologize, I'm looking at our vice chair and secretary. I cannot recall, yes. So we will go back, I will go back and review our rules and regs in terms of what we've established in terms of responding to public comment, both presented verbally in our meetings and submitted online. Okay.
We'll discuss it at our next executive.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I would like to open it up to the floor. If there are any announcements, events, anything for the good of the order that anyone wants to share. I will not be so bold as to say we are already halfway through the summer because that sounds so, hate making pronouncements like that, but typically summer is a busy time. If anyone has anything to share for the good of the order.
I'll just have one comment to put on the record, I guess. The Cleveland Tree Coalition member meeting will be on August 14th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. at Event Space 4008. The address is 4008 East 131st Street. So it's down in the southeast side. And there will be kind of unveiling, I suppose, the Cleveland Tree Coalition's communications and engagement plan, which is kind of a big deal. We're working behind the scenes to make sure we're looping in a lot of organizations and their communications folks, and we're preparing for a lot of co-branding. So all the materials that are made can be co-opted by anyone really at any time. So a lot of work coming out and being presented there, in addition to for all those who are interested in the trees that the CTC has planted. Our great interns who are in the back have been inventorying over 1,400 trees over the summer. So they'll be presenting on the status of those trees and kind of showing off the data they have collected, cleaned, and hopefully by that time analyzed. So they're on a ticking clock for that. But yeah, if you want to see sort of the fruits of those labors, August 14th is the member meeting.
Thank you. Great. Anyone else? Okay. So with that, actually, we are right on time to adjourn our quarterly meeting. And it's just been a pleasure and really appreciating all the forward momentum that we have that was discussed today. So thank you all so much. We may make a motion to adjourn our meeting. Or may I ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting? Thank you.
I'll make the motion to adjourn our Urban Forestry Commission meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.